one who lives together with a Gentile in a single courtyard, or with one who does not accept the laws of Erevin, that person places a restriction upon him. These are the words of Rav Meir. Eliezer ben Yaakov says he never restricts unless there are two Jews restricting each other.
Okay, so what's the just we need to have this perspective over here and understand this because we didn't do this yesterday. But if somebody doesn't believe in Eruv, if somebody isn't shaykh by Eruv, then everyone agrees that this is that this person is not able to be part. Well, let me just see what the Chachamim say on this. The Gemara explains that both Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer say that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say that the non-Jew actually is not really part of the picture. Actually, Chachamim themselves say that no, the non-Jew has a share in the courtyard, and you can't make an eruv unless you buy out his portion. Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov say that no, the mishum eruv, it's not actually a problem because his dira is not considered a permanent thing. But there's another thing that comes into play over here, and that is the fact that Chachamim didn't want Jews to live as neighbors to non-Jews because the non-Jews at the time were capable of doing violent things. So they made a knas that you can't have that if you do this and you can't use the chatzer on Shabbos. You can't carry in it because of the non-Jew being there. And Rabbi Eliezer, the only difference between them is that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says that this only a case when you have two. The reason why they didn't want you to live with the non-Jews, they didn't want you to learn from them. They have different practices, different morality. We want Jews to live separately. But Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says you don't need to make that gezerah if it's just one Jew and one non-Jew, because the one Jew is going to be afraid to live near the non-Jew because mistama non-Jews can be violent. So he says the gezerah only kicks in when they're two Jews sharing with a non-Jew. Okay, let's move on.
But the non-Jew doesn't hold by any. It doesn't have an obligation to any halakas or anything like that. So it's right. Almost like he shouldn't even count in the eruv portion.
So according to the Chachamim, this doesn't even come into play because if the non-Jew is in the courtyard, he owns a piece of it, and you've got to buy him out if you want to use it. Whereas Rabbi Meir says that if it's just one Jew and one non-Jew, then the non-Jew isn't counted in the whole thing.
Right. Okay. Rabbi Gamliel said, it once happened that a Sadducee lived with us in an alley in Yerushalayim, and Father told us, hurry and carry out all your utensils into the alley before he carries out and restricts you. Rabbi Yehuda related this in different terms. Hurry and attend to your needs in the alley before it passes and he restricts you.
Okay, now the subtle differences over here. First of all, we're talking about Tzduki now. He's a Jew. But he's a Jew who doesn't hold by eruv. Okay, so now what's his din? Is he if he relinquishes his reshus in this alleyway, then how much does that hold? How much does that hold water? So according to Rabban Gamliel, he's saying no. A Jew is even though he's a tzduki, he has the power to relinquish his das, and therefore when it happened that this kuti did this for us, my father said, go and take out all the kalim into the alleyway. To make an assertion of your ownership over the alley, in order to be clear that this is your property, so that because if he starts taking out his stuff, he's reasserting his ownership over the alleyway. He renounced it, remember. So if he starts taking things into the alleyway, then he's going to effectively renounce it. Rabbi Yehuda doesn't like this interpretation. He says, no, it was a different lashon. He is saying, go and do your things in the mavoi until do your things in. Rabbi Yehuda says that the tzduki has got a din of a non-Jew, and his bittul rishus doesn't help. So therefore he says, no, you heard the wrong lashon of Rabban Gamliel, of Rabban Gamliel's father, who uses Abba. I'm not sure which Rabban Gamliel we're talking about, whose father is, but probably Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So Rabbi Yehuda says that the tzedukis. So what was the thing? My Erev Shabbos. You go and do your things there before Shabbos. Ad shelo yotzi. In other words, until the end of the day, before it gets dark. And then the tzedukah will assur it to you. It says it's immaterial. On Shabbos it's going to be assur to you. So you want to use the mavoi, use it now before Shabbos, because you're not going to be able to carry stuff into the mavoi during Shabbos. Period. Anyway, that's Rabbi Yehuda's interpretation of those words. Carry on.
Okay. All right. Gimel. The residents of a courtyard, one of whom forgot to participate in the Erev, his house is restricted regarding to carrying in and carrying out to him, and so to them, but theirs are permitted to him and to them. If they ceded their rights to him, he is permitted. If they are restricted,
If they are
restricted. If they were two, they restrict each other, because an individual can cede rights and acquire rights. Two can cede rights but cannot acquire rights.
Okay. See, the thing is that if you've got just one person, then the one person who forgot, he can cede his rights over the alleyway, and the two people who already made an erev now have so the whole thing belongs to them collectively.
Right.
Okay. If you have two people who both forgot to participate in the erev, and now then each of them respectively assurs the other one. So even if the one cedes his rights, the other one doesn't have an erev at all. So he's still prevented from using it. So they can both give their rights over to other people in the courtyard who have made an erev. But they can't. But with more than one person taking rishus, it's not going to work, because then even if the other people in the alleyway cede their rights over the alleyway, you can't have two people who haven't made an erev now suddenly coming together and having rights over the erev, over the courtyard. Okay. Okay. So for this situation, from when can they cede their rights if they realize that they haven't made an erev? It has to be before Shabbos comes in. They can also do it during Shabbos. Okay. Now, what happens if somebody ceded his rights in the alleyway, and then he went ahead and by an act took something out from his house into the alleyway? So did he recede his rights, or did he not cede his rights? Rabbi Meir says it doesn't matter if it was mistaken or deliberate. He has effectively cancelled his cession of rights, and therefore the other diam in the courtyard cannot carry into there either. So if he just forgot himself and carried things out, he didn't do anything wrong. But if he deliberately carried something out into the courtyard, that shows that he has not ceded his rights, and therefore the other diarim have a problem. Okay. So shutaf l'shchenim. So they've got a mavoi between them. Okay, this is not. It's dafka talking about a shituf mavos, not talking about a erev chatzeres, because an erev chatzeres always requires bread. So that's the chatzer between multiple houses, like you'd have with your neighbors in your block. Okay, when you have a common area, that you'd need an area, because that's a chatzer. But when you have a mavoi, that's like a street going between them, and you want to block off that street. So the mavoi doesn't need bread. You can use other foods. For example, as in the case of this Mishnah, you can use wine or you can use oil. Now the scenario painted by this Mishnah is where the people in the mavoi were wine dealers, they were in a partnership. They all live together, and they've got wine in partnership. And then comes Erev Shabbos, and they say, hey, you know what? We've already got all this wine that belongs jointly to each of us. Why don't we just use this wine for our Erev? So says the Mishnah, Ba'al habayis shutaf l'shchenim, l'zeh b'yayin, l'zeh b'yayin. So with each of his neighbors, he's got a different deal, but it's all involving wine. They don't need to make a new Eruv for the Shituf Mavos. Okay. However, if he's got a business partnership with one guy with oil and another guy with wine, then because the two other guys have got different interests, one's got wine and one's got oil, then they have to make a separate shituf. Rabbi Shimon Omer, echad ze ve'echad ze einam tzrichim la'arev. It says, no, if you've got, it doesn't matter because they're all ultimately bound together with food. Therefore, it's possible to you can just use the existing food. However, the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Shimon, and they do need to make a separate cache of food for their eruv. Okay. So here's a situation where you've got a big hall, and you've got people staying over in the hall, and they put a bunch of mechitzas through the hall so that each family's got its own private space. Okay, now the question is obviously there's got to be a passageway through the hall, for them to get between the different cordoned off sections. So what did they do as far as carrying is concerned through this hall? Every single family needs to contribute to an eruv chatzeros. No, it's just one. It's just one area. It's like a whole bunch of families all living in one house, and it's enough that one of them would. So let's say that this house itself, this I think the question here, I just suddenly realized that the situation over here is so there's a chatzer outside of the hall, which is shared by other neighbors. I think that's really the deal is now, because the question is not about carrying inside the hall. The question is about carrying into the chatzer that's outside the hall and shared by other neighbors. So now, Beis Shammai say every one of these families is considered as a separate resident, and every one of them needs to contribute towards the eruv because they've got their rights separately inside this chatzer. And Beis Hillel say no, they're all considered like residents of one house, and you only need one of them to contribute towards the eruv chatzeres with the other neighbors. Okay, modim bizman shemiktasan shuruyin v'chadarim o ba'alios shehen tzrichin eruv lechol chavura v'chavura. But they agree with Beis Shammai in principle that if these are actually separate rooms, or if there's an attic and they're living in, and it's like a hotel, right? Then that they need to contribute from each family for the eruv with the other residents of the chatzer. Okay.
They says they agree, however, when some of them are quartered in rooms or upper stories, they need to make an eruv for each group.
Yeah, because now they're clearly in separate residences.
Right.
Okay, the previous case was just where they put up mechitzas inside one big hall. So Beis Hillel was saying, okay, so they're all just in one big hall. It's basically one space. They're not. It's not really separate dwellings. Okay, that's it. I'm going to need to go to Shachris.
Okay, they moved the times? They're moving earlier, or?
It's 8 o'clock now, yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll see if we can start earlier then. Okay. All right, have a great Shabbos. I'll see you on Sunday, Mitzvah Shem.
Okay, have a good Shabbos.
Okay.
Bye.
Shabbos. Well, thank you. Bye.